Welcome to the Exploring Awareness podcast. Join Dr. Frank Anderson and Lisa Berry in exploring new ways to live in this chaotic world and find peace and joy in the most unlikely places.
Hello, and thanks for listening to the Exploring Awareness podcast. I'm Lisa here with Frank, and very grateful that you're here with us too. We just appreciate you joining us for this conversation about exploring awareness. And maybe this is your first time, or maybe you've been following along with us. But Frank, I'm thinking maybe you should just tell us briefly again, what does exploring awareness mean? What are we doing?
Yes, welcome to Exploring Awareness. And in our podcast, we use mindfulness techniques, and we use those techniques to explore what it means to be mindful, or like, how are we mindful? What is it to be mindful? And we're using the word aware. So we're using the word awareness as a part of a perspective on life that allows us to be mindful. So we learn mindfulness techniques to explore awareness. And this is episode number 41. And so we've been talking about awareness for like 40 plus hours. So I would say I'm amazed that there's that much to explore about awareness, but there certainly is. And, you know, we're on this journey together. If you start back at episode 1, you can see the journey we've been on together, exploring awareness, and how interesting and useful it can be, and how exploring awareness is something that goes beyond actual explaining awareness. Mm-hmm. You know, it's more of a personal exploration. And so our conversations in the podcast and our guided meditations, you know, are pointers to help people kind of wake up and realize there is this perspective of awareness that allows us to see how we think and see how we act. And from that perspective, you know, we can see, is that really how we want to be? Or by connecting to that deeper place, could we be informed in a different way? Informed from awareness and its kind of effects, and move around in the world easier and more peaceful, more loving, and more generous and compassionate.
And I have been part of these 40 hours of conversation, and that was a great description. It was a little different. I mean, not a lot different, but just a different way to put it, a different perspective. So thank you.
Yeah, well, we've been exploring so long.
Yeah.
The conversations evolved, you know,
right.
The questions have evolved, the discussion has evolved, and it is a real exploration, and it's been so interesting. So I hope if this is your first time listening, you can go back and listen to the first few episodes and see how things change as we've gone along.
And there's so many different things and concepts and feelings to explore. And I thought for this one, we would explore the awareness of healing. Yeah. I love healing. It's like a miracle. It's like you can heal. It's possible. And the fact that can happen, and I want to explore how it happens or what it means or how do we get there. But I recently cut my finger, and it was bad. And Frank, being a doctor, he was kind enough to let me send him my bloody picture. I'm like, can I send you a picture? And you're like, sure. And I'm like, okay. You're like, looks like it's healing to me. And it has. If you look, it was bad. And if you look at it now, it's like, you can't even tell what had happened, and it healed. And that's just my finger. I mean, think about all the different parts of ourselves and our hearts and our minds and our souls and our lives that need healing. And it's there, and it's possible. And so tell us, Frank, how do we explore the awareness of healing?
Well, I looked up the definition of healing on Google and found a couple of definitions that make sense to me. It says healing is the process of making or becoming sound or healthy again. And then the other one says healing is the process of the restoration of health from an unbalanced, diseased, damaged, or unvitalized organism. And as a physician, we often say our physicians also healers and nurses as well. And in this Wikipedia definition, it said nurses are more concerned with matters of healing, whereas historically, the profession of medicine has been concerned with curing. So I think it's an interesting distinction between healing and curing. Curing being, like eliminating a disease with an antibiotic or curing a problem with surgery so that the problem no longer is there. But I like healing, and I like when the definition includes the word restoration or a return. And so when we've been talking about exploring awareness, we're talking about, we've used the term returning home, or returning back to the core, or kind of restoring wholeness. And so I like this word healing self, healing others, about this idea of returning to some type of wholeness. And so in a way, you may not be cured of your disease, but you could still be healed, right? And I mentioned to you before this wonderful book by a physician named Rachel Naomi Remen. And she wrote the book Kitchen Table Wisdom. And she's had medical issues before, but she's written about this idea that even though she wasn't cured, she was still healed. And I find that very interesting, relating to the same process that we've been talking about when you explore awareness and return home and become whole. It's kind of like, just like your finger, it's kind of a process that happens, right? And you become whole again. Does that make sense?
Well, and you mentioned unbalanced, and I'm all about like being balanced. Part of the reason I like mindfulness or do this podcast or have the interviews about well-being is to be balanced. I think that is such a key word, like you're balanced. You're not too far in one direction. And so healing can help balance you. But I was also thinking, like, we're talking about, this is about being aware. Can you be aware of healing? I mean, I think healing to me is the active. I never compared it to being cured before. So I'm still contemplating that, how healing and curing are similar. But I feel like healing, like the healing force, it's not something you really watch, or how do you be aware of healing?
Well, when your finger was healing, you were aware that it was healing, right? The skin was coming together, the scab was coming off or whatever. And there is that sense of healing that you could see, right, in that organic process. But just like exploring awareness, using mindfulness techniques, becoming aware of your thoughts and transforming those things with awareness, the healing kind of happens naturally, and sometimes you may not know it until after it's happened, right? Like you may have a very present moment experience, say with a physician or with a friend. Have you ever had this experience? You're all out of your head thinking and whining and complaining, and someone is just listening to you very, very intently. And it's like something happens. There's kind of a being heard and being with someone who's really present. You might interpret that later as a healing experience. It's like, that really was a healing experience. And so it's more like a happening spontaneously. And there may be some awareness of that, but it may be afterwards too, that you kind of integrate it and say, wow, that I really feel better. Somehow that healed me, even though I still may have the problem. I've returned to this sense of being, this sense of presence, and it's being aware of what needs to be healed, let's say, leads to healing, right? So healing is like an action.
Right.
It's happening.
Someone put it to me recently that the healing force, which is in everything, is always wanting to operate.
Right, exactly. It's like the joy is always there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing we've said in the podcast quite a bit. Something is always there, right? And we just tend to cover it up. I think your body and mind, there is always a move toward wholeness, a restoration of balance. And that's kind of the natural state, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And when we get pulled out of the natural state, whether it be a physical ailment or kind of mental, not a mental ailment necessarily, but mental distractions and attachments and habitual actions and things like that does take us out of balance. And when we use our exploring awareness techniques, we see those things happening. We return to this being, and then the healing is kind of spontaneous along with that. So it is almost the same, isn't it? Kind of being and healing, similar.
What do you think about this? The healing force is the most essential force. Were you ever aware of that thought before?
The healing force is the most essential force?
Yep.
Well, I'm not sure I would rank anything like that, to be honest.
Well, what if you're looking for healing? I think we're all looking for healing, whether it's from trauma. It seems like trauma is the big thing people talk about a lot now. Healing from trauma, or healing from a bad childhood, or healing from a bad relationship. I think everyone at some point, maybe more often than you might imagine, is looking for or needing or wanting healing. So to know that there's this healing force available to everyone, I think brings healing and hope.
Right. I think you're right, but I don't know if everyone knows how to get that. Right. So you know how much I love Burning Man, right?
Yeah.
We talk about that quite a bit, not for the aspects most people think about, but some of the deeper aspects of Burning Man. And there are healing tents and healing camps at Burning Man. I'm part of one. And it's so interesting that, in that environment, if you don't know, Burning Man is this big, large festival in the desert way out in Nevada. And people come there with a lot going on, come with groups, with their friends or their own personal quests. And this camp that I'm involved with is called a healing oasis. And so people show up there with problems, and they, like you said, they're seeking some healing. And the people in my camp do massage work and energy work and meditation. That's what I do, acupuncture and things like that. I believe that when a person becomes aware that there's a problem, that is the first step in healing, to become aware that there's actually something wrong. Now, I think you and I have both met people who don't know there's something wrong and continue with their habitual energies or their bad habits or their, whatever you might notice seems like suffering. And again, it's hard to tell, but there are plenty of people who will tell you they didn't know they were having a problem. And then when they became aware of it, first to recognize it. So there is that step that I think is actually a part of healing. I think that's probably why placebos work, because if you're taking a placebo, you recognize there's a problem and you want it to be solved. And so you do something. So back to Burning Man. So we have this healing oasis, and people are in a very stressful environment, and they come to our camp looking for healing. And then they meet a quote unquote healer. And I've always said that people are actually healing themselves. And if you're with someone, they're kind of that guide to guide you to a place where then your own body heals itself, right? Your body is constantly wanting to heal itself. And sometimes if you're just pulled out, you're lost. And so recognizing that there's a problem and then returning to wholeness might be helped by someone else. But I really believe, though, that your own practice of meditation can help heal a problem, number one. And number two, that sense that you develop by repetitive meditation is constantly healing, and the tendency to get out of balance will be lessened.
So are you saying you can't heal if you aren't aware that you need healing?
Yeah, I am suggesting that.
Yeah. Perfect. And it's like, awareness, again, tying it in. First of all, you need to be aware that you need healing. And then I heard meditation is a way to heal. And I heard something the other day and I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but they said that like, if you're getting in the habit of meditating is like part of the healing force. We're saying meditation is a healing force. Meditation can be used to heal.
Well, our last podcast episode number 40 was about meditation. The essence of meditation is being, right? And I would say that being is kind of a state of wholeness. And so if we're taking on this activity of meditation or living with a perspective of awareness, then that being part of us, is going to be more predominant than the doing and the thinking and the habitual energy and habits and reactions, right? So when we do this exploring awareness, cultivate our being and let that be the predominant driver for our lives, then the healing is happening spontaneously, kind of just like your finger healed spontaneously.
Mm-hmm. Plus, I like the equation of healing and wholeness. I never really put those together before, but you're right. Healing brings wholeness and balance. Those are the things that I'm personally always striving for and trying to share and go down the path towards and maybe take some people with me. But being balanced and healing leads to wholeness. And that's what it's all about, really. To me.
Right. Exactly. And so I'm part of a course here at the University of Michigan called the Healer's Art Course. And it was actually developed by Rachel Naomi Remen, who wrote Kitchen Table Wisdom. And this is a course for medical students who are interested in healing and in the art of healing. And I love that title, The Healer's Art. And I'm actually going to speak to them about mindfulness tomorrow night. And, what you just said reminds me of curing. And, I'm an obstetrician gynecologist. And I see people with diseases, right? And I cure them of the diseases with antibiotics, surgeries or other treatments. Curing is a pretty narrow thing. And, some curing from physicians requires really advanced technology. And so some of us are just super, super advanced and technological, and we're really good at fixing or curing. Now, well, we always can't cure things, but we can fix a lot of things. But is it healing? Is it a healing experience? And I know a lot of young people go to medical school wanting to be healers, and they get into the medical system, and it's very technical and very based on curing. And people can miss out on this art of healing. And so I'm really looking forward to talking to the medical students, and we're going to talk about meditation techniques and awareness and presence. And so that when someone comes to us with a problem, there can be a cure and a potential healing. And one thing I've noticed, that when I'm really present with a patient and they're really present with me, we kind of heal each other. At the same time. It's a really wonderful thing when someone is looking for something beyond a cure and there's some interaction there, and it's often not verbal. There's a mutual kind of return to wholeness. And so we're both healed a little bit.
See, and as a physician, I commend you for even being open to that. I think a lot of doctors are like, I don't want to think that it's all about them and what they can do. And for you to be open that maybe you could get something from a patient and that you're healing each other is amazing.
Yeah, and that's what I want to talk to the medical students about, because there is that opportunity there for both to happen. And I do believe that if physicians, had a perspective, it takes a little shift, not a lot.
Yeah.
It's not giving up anything. But for me, that really prevents burnout too. It's not, physicians have a lot of burnout because there's so many demands upon them. And for all of us, it's a struggle to be present. I think physicians have an especially big struggle because just the number of demands on their time. Being present takes more practice. But no matter what you've got going on, and even if you're not a physician, you've got a lot going on, the present moment is still the present moment, right? And the present moment can be a still, or it can be clouded over by past, present, future. So your choice. But the how is always the kicker, because it's like, we'll be present, heal. But how is the question. Easy to say, harder to do. And as you know, in this podcast, I really like to focus on the how. And the how is going to be using the words that we're talking about, guiding to your own experience of wholeness. And so the how is going to be doing these mindfulness techniques and integrating them into, your nature and your yoga and your work, so that sense of being is more often your base of operation.
So I was in a situation, a semi-medical situation not too long ago, and I found myself, I don't want to say demanding, but really trying to get the person I was talking to be in the present moment with me, to just see me. Don't lump me in with other people in the same situation, but see me and be present with me. And I've later felt kind of obnoxious for I wasn't demanding it, but for seriously, sincerely requesting it. But now what I hear what you're saying, I feel like I was kind of on the right path pursuing that in that way.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, there's a interesting medical article that people could look up. It's not too full of jargon, but it's called Mindfulness and Patient Safety. And so it's not quite what you're talking about. You're talking about kind of mindfulness and patient satisfaction, but mindfulness and patient safety talks about something called a cognitive bias to respond. And it wouldn't be just in medicine either, but if you see something and you say, oh yeah, that's a zebra.
Right.
And it may look like a zebra at first, but if you look a lot closer, it might be one of those other animals with stripes. And so when you're with a patient, hear a list of symptoms, you just instantly have a bias to put them in a category and respond based on
Mhm.
that category.
Exactly.
And so in this article, they talk about mindfulness, or actually it's the awareness of your cognitive bias to respond. Right. So do you know how your mind is working? Now, the you that knows your mind is working, it's a very interesting sentence, isn't it? Like, you know your mind is working. Are there two of you? There aren't two of you, but there's the awareness, which is actually who you are, is aware that your mind is functioning in the way that it was trained. So the part of you that knows that, right? That's the awareness part. That's the part I'm trying to help people connect to. So knowing that you know, right? Knowing that you have a bias puts you in one step back from all of your thoughts into the awareness place so that you can see how your mind is working so that you don't miss things. So that
I'm
you don't
feverishly taking notes. I am not kidding. I'm like, okay, have a bias, be aware. No, because this is amazing. This is, and do you teach this to other doctors?
Yes.
Oh my
I
goodness.
can't teach it to every doctor, but do you see?
Yeah.
And
I
for
see.
listeners, you see how it's very subtle. It's a subtle thing. And it's easy to say awareness, I'm aware, but I'm talking about deep awareness. I'm talking about realization of awareness, realization that there's a part of you, a wisdom part of you that can see how you're thinking. And so if you think it, you won't get there because you're thinking. And that's what we practice mindfulness techniques. And being mindful of thinking is not as easy as being mindful of the breath. So we always start with being mindful of the breath because the breath is always there. You're breathing and you can kind of say, oh, I'm aware of the breath. And then I'm aware of the body. And then you can be aware of thoughts and biases and emotions and habits and tendencies, right? So it's kind of a little bit of a stepwise process to develop this awareness muscle. And the beautiful thing about it is when you start to identify with awareness, when you start to being present with that presence is also a very nice sense of peace and love and joy and generosity. It's like a wellspring. It's like a unending kind of wellspring of energy that is who you are, really. So again, is it logical and kind of a framework? So how we teach that on the podcast, to doctors, to whoever, again, is a guide to that experience. And once you taste it, once you realize it, then you can see it. It reminds me of our first episode when I talked about sugar, right? And said, if you remember that, you can talk about sugar all you want,
Right.
but until you taste it, you won't know what sugar is. And then you said nobody eats just sugar. But I used to eat sugar packets all the time when I was a kid,
Seriously?
Shoney's,
Oh boy.
But
okay. So this conversation is making me so happy. So thank you for bringing it all together like this. And this, like today I was having just nothing was going right this morning. It was just one thing after the other, and I was like, I had to stop and I thought, just be aware. It's all going to work out. In fact, you co-founded, and I know you have a new name, Ann Arbor Open Meditation, and I logged into Zoom.
Open mindfulness meditation.
Open mindfulness meditation now. And I logged in for the group meditation the other night, and there was a leader. I think his name was Paul. And
he's one of our leaders.
Yes, he was very interesting. And he said something that I've been thinking about a lot since that. He said he tells himself one of his mantras is it's not a big deal, or something along those lines. It's really not a big deal. And I thought that is a great way to look at things. And so, so this morning when everything one after the other went wrong, I just said, just be all right. Just be aware. You know, it's all going to work out. So don't get all caught up in it right now, and don't be, a victim of other people's biases or a victim of other people not caring. Just be aware that lots of things are not going your way, and it's not that big of a deal because, and it did, and it resolved a couple hours later.
Yeah.
So instead of suffering through it for several hours, I got through it by being aware.
Wow. And how was that experience different?
Because before I would have fret and I would have gotten mad and I would have eaten a cookie and I would have, I mean, some of us eat sugar out of sugar packets and some of us soothe ourselves with the cookies. But so instead of getting all caught up in that, I just said, okay, be aware that things aren't not going your way right now, and be aware that these people, like you said, are maybe not looking at me the way I want them to look at me, and it's not getting resolved. And as I think Paul's, I don't want to misquote him, but it was something along the lines like, just, it's not a big deal. This is no big deal. And it wasn't. It all worked out.
Yeah.
And
well, he says that. So it's probably
is that his
exactly
thing?
right. Yeah.
Yeah. I found that useful. I appreciated hearing that.
Well, I don't want to dismiss people's real problems because
Right.
sometimes they are.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And even if it is a big deal, there's
Yeah.
still ways to deal with it, right? And
Right.
to be collected and aware, you can make some decisions for yourself,
Mhm.
right? So that these things don't keep happening. And I think that's really important. And that's, again, goes back to what I was saying about how you move around in the world, and some people do these practices, right? And they come to some pretty difficult realizations like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this the same way for 20 years. And now I'm kind of in a pickle here because, I've done that. So that I'm living with the consequences of those kind of habitual things, or I'm living with the consequences of living my life because I've lived it because I thought that's what I was supposed to do as opposed to what I really wanted to do. If you're making your life on criminal activity and you finally realize it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? That's an extreme example, but it's like there could be some real important realizations that people come to so that their lives, or at least they come to some realizations that to live kind of an authentic life, they're going to have to make some big changes.
I have to jump in here because you said something so huge to me about people living their lives the way they thought they were supposed to. You're raised in a family and your parents have expectations, and your boss, everybody has expectations of you. And if you're a pleaser like me, then you think you're supposed to do it that way, but you don't have to. If you're aware of it and you know what's going on, you don't have to do it the way you think everyone wants you to do it or they're expecting you to do it. You don't have to. I think awareness brings you freedom.
Yeah. I mean, or it could bring you reinforcements like, oh yeah, this is perfect for me. It's, not everything we learn from our parents is not helpful, but it really depends on where you're at. Are you happy?
Right.
Or are you looking for, like you said, are you looking for healing? Are you looking for something else? Is something not satisfying for you? So, that's the prerequisite. But it can be very true that some suffering and unhappiness comes from the fact that the life you're living is not your own. And I love that idea of living the life that's yours, and how you would come to realize that.
And how would you?
Yeah, that's right. How would you?
No, that was a real question.
we're back.
It seems to be happening to me a lot lately. I ask questions and it gets reflected back on me. And I'm like, well, no, that was a real question. Like, and I have no real answer. I'm like, okay.
Well, we're back to the how, right?
Okay.
And the how is not going to be I'm not going to give you a list of what to do. The how is very personal for you. I can help you, guide you to this place where then you figure out what you need to do. I mean, I say I guide you. I'm saying let's use mindfulness techniques. Let's connect to something deeper, something that can inform us beyond just what we've learned. What do you feel? What's in your heart?
So can I just throw in that we know what's in my heart and we know what I feel, and that is love. And love is a healing force.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's how I'm going to work it, I hope.
Yeah. And it's work, and that's what, and you're doing that, right? It's not easy. And I'm not saying that you meditate and then everything's going to be wonderful, but meditation is going to put you in the lane that's going to take you where you want to go. Right?
Yes.
So to speak. If you're in
it's perfect. I love that.
If you're in the left lane, you might end up in, the Upper Peninsula, or if you're in the right lane, you might end up in Florida. I don't know. It's like you set the course, right, for where you're headed.
So say that again. Meditation puts you in the lane of the direction that you're heading.
Well, it's going to put you in the lane toward kind of authenticity, toward living the life that's yours. But the thing is, you do have to make a decision, at least be open to the possibility that beyond thoughts, beyond habits, beyond expectations, there's a place that can inform you. And it isn't necessarily going to be in words. It's going to be in experience. And I call that, the one way to call that experience is awareness or being or home, or that core. Identifying with it and just seeing what it tells you.
And you've used that phrase and that word inform you so many times, and it just hit me. Like, what does inform you mean? And I'm trying to think, well, let me say what it means to me, because meditation reveals things. I don't know. I'm assuming that's what you mean when you say inform you. Because for me, meditation reveals things and it clarifies things and it brings you a different perspective of things. So there's a lot of different things that it can, quote unquote, inform you of. That's how I look at it. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that. And as you start to identify as awareness and identify as being, that perspective is this kind of source of wisdom and love and peace and joy, right? And so those ideas might then affect your decisions, inform your decisions. So if you're about to take another job, that might inform your decisions, or if you're about to have another relationship, that might inform your decision. So when I say inform, I'm talking about creating a new basis for how you move forward. And so that then is maybe a shift. Now, it's not, people already have this, and some more completely than others, but people are making decisions, and they're making good decisions. But this perspective will affect decisions down the road and then affect life as it unfolds.
That brings me so much peace to know that that's all within me. Yeah. And all I have to do, not all I have to do, but I mean, the way to get there is to be quiet and meditate.
Right. And to meditate and to connect to something deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And, see if it's consistent with your life now. And if it is, wonderful. And if it's not, how could things be different? We did a meditation today at the university. We call it Mindfulness Mondays. It's only the second Monday of each month, but we talk about triggers.
Oh, yeah.
And we were talking about when you're driving down the highway and someone cuts you off, what do? You yell at them, even though they can't hear you, or you offer gestures with your hands or whatever. So, reaction, habitual energy, that kind of thing. And then what if now we did a guided meditation, like after the meditation, what would you do? What would you do? Would you still do all that? Or would you just say, that person has got their own issues. It has nothing to do with me, and just keep driving peacefully.
Well, I think that's where awareness comes in. If you are aware of the situation, and if you're aware of how you're feeling, and if you're aware of how you're reacting, that can change the whole scenario.
So it may change the next 5 minutes, or it may change the next 10 years.
Yep.
So, that's the small triggers are, small things, but there's larger, they may not seem like triggers, but there are larger influences that can also, no longer be the most important thing as you work with this material. And then, of course, there's a healing that comes from that. There's a sense of wholeness that comes from that. There's a sense of authenticity that comes from that. And it can always be improved and always be cultivated. I never get bored with this stuff.
Right.
You'd think sitting, meditating would be boring, but boredom is kind of another reaction. And so to know that you're bored again transforms boredom into presence. So it's so close, right? And that can also heal boredom, heal some of the pain that people might be feeling during the pandemic. This I love that idea of transforming anything into presence, transforming anything into being. That again, that transformation, restoration to wholeness is a sense of self-healing. Great topic today.
I know. I love that. And self-healing. I don't think we actually put that together, but self-healing.
Yeah, self-healing. And it is ultimately self-healing. You're healing yourself, and
right.
And you can have a helper, or, you can heal yourself through some of what we're talking about. And
it's like a mini miracle. That's why I've always somebody will have surgery or someone will be sick, and I'll say, you know what, just wait till tomorrow. You'll be surprised at how much better you'll feel.
Yeah.
Because there's healing, and you wake up and things are healing.
But even to say that to someone can be very healing.
That's a nice thought.
Right. Yeah.
So are you going to heal us with a meditation?
No. You can heal yourself with a meditation.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, a return to wholeness.
And
I would caveat this by asking people to check what their expectations are, too, about healing. And healing may not be what you think it is or what you want it to be. And so like Rachel Renan said, she'd been cured. She had been cured, but she hadn't been healed. But then at other times she had been healed and not cured. So to be realistic about our expectations, and also to be realistic about the speed, because lots of people want things fast and now. And sometimes healing takes a while, just like that big ugly wound you had on your hand took a while. Took a while to heal.
You said I could send you a picture.
I know. Hey, I see this all the time. So
I know, right?
anyway, it wasn't ugly, but yeah,
It wasn't pretty, I'll tell you that.
it takes some time and patience,
Right.
and some self-compassion, self-patience, and these are all these little things that come along with a perspective of being and healing. And so we'll enter kind of a space where now people are in chairs or in their cars, so just gently pull over to the side of the road. Put on your flashers, perhaps, or not. You may not want the police to stop and interrupt this guided meditation. But anyway, wherever you are, as long as you're not driving, in your chair, and just coming into your body as it is. You may have aches and pains, and you may have a mile a minute thoughts going on. You may have a very difficult situation in your life. You may have an easy situation in your life. Whatever, let's just say whatever it is, let's all come to a same place in the present moment in our bodies. And some of our bodies are whole and some of our bodies are not whole. And let's just for a minute, whatever it is, with your health or your absence of health, your happiness, your unhappiness, your satisfaction, your dissatisfaction, whatever, let's just all come to this for just a moment, a place of just presence. And just your body here, your body as a body. I like to say, you can check the baggage at the door. It'll be there when we're done. If you want to pick it up, you can. If not, you can leave it. But step into this special opportunity place, just being present to your body. And notice the breath. And we're all of us right now are breathing. We're all alive and we're breathing. And unless we've been meditating today already, we haven't really been aware of it. And so now we're taking a chance to just notice the breath. And for those of us who can breathe easily, we're noticing the breath in and out. For those who have trouble breathing, you might notice wheezes or tightness. But for now, just whatever is happening, we're bringing it to awareness. The air going in the nose, filling the lungs up to a certain point, and then reverse. And so already the awareness of breathing is creating some space. If thoughts come, just back to the breath. And you're kind of relieved of the never-ending chatter in your brain, which may feel kind of joyful or relaxing. Sometimes it's so relaxing people fall asleep. Sometimes the chatter is so engaging, not to do it feels boring. All of these things can be brought to awareness. Boring, sleepiness. Just see it as part of what's happening. And the same with the body. The body as it is. A healthy body. A body with a problem. Our body with cancer. A body with an infection. A body perhaps pregnant. A body perhaps you're happy with. A body perhaps you're not happy with. But at this moment, it's your body. Can't change it. We're aware of it. Have the thoughts about it. Aware of the thoughts about it. Perhaps there's pain in the body. You want it to be cured. But right now it's there, along with the resistance to pain and the fear of the future, the regret for the past, the endless speculations on how this happened, or perhaps happened to you. But just bring it back to the present moment. All of those thoughts, judgments, bring those to awareness. And perhaps there's depression, anxiety, mental distress, trauma. In this present moment, we're just bringing all of it to a kind of loving awareness and seeing it all as part of a big amalgamation of history, but the awareness hasn't been changed by any of it. The sense of being has nothing to do with thoughts, the body, the emotions. Because all of those things come and go. They will come and go. They're all temporary. They're all impermanent. But somehow this, bringing them to this awareness place has a timeless, still, kind of peaceful, accepting quality that's there. And maybe if you've been locked up in all of these other things, just to know that there's another perspective can just be very joyful. And so, despite the fact that these things are there and have been there, maybe there in the future, in this moment, we're just kind of, maybe this sense of awareness can bring some deeper kind of healing, self-healing. It may not cure the problem or make it go away, but it's the perspective has shifted. So that something deeper, something that really is timeless and authentic can kind of fill in. Take some of the space up that was occupied by all of these other things. So just fill your body with this sense of presence and joy and love and light. And so instead of the pain and the thoughts and misery being 90%, maybe now it's 10%. And so instead of resentment and fear, there's love and presence, and kind of transforming some of these impossible situations into presence, into that sense of wholeness and a sense of self-healing. And self-compassion. And then a wave of doubt comes, a wave of judgment comes. Bring awareness to the fact that the wave is coming back. Watch it come in, watch it go out. While you just stay this same open, loving awareness to let whatever happens, happens. And then see what that does for you without thoughts. Just organic shift. And then just rest, and rest as awareness. Cultivate and maintain the sense of being, of presence. And you go on with your life, and you get distracted and lost in thoughts and occupied by situations until you become aware of it, taking a breath, and then come back to this place that never went anywhere, it just got covered up. This place of healing. And then the more you can cultivate this for yourself and moving into the world, making decisions from this place, and then interacting with people who will sense it. Maybe get healed from your work. Start to open. They feel it, like you put a new log next to a burning log, and then the new log starts to catch on fire too. Fire being the healing, the presence. And then people keep doing this, and we start healing the world of suffering. Healing the world of distress and dismissal and attachment. It's no big deal compared to this. Compared to this truth. Compared to this really sense of being and presence. And so we'll end now by taking a couple of breaths, wiggling your toes and fingers, coming back into your body, opening your eyes, and checking in with Lisa.
I like how you're thinking big. We're going to heal the whole world now. We started out with healing my finger, my ugly wound, as you described it, and now we're healing the world. So,
well,
awesome.
It does have to go there eventually.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you.
That would be beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. One person at a time, and we can make a difference.
Yeah, we used to say it at our peace camp. A peaceful person makes a peaceful family. A peaceful family makes a peaceful neighborhood. A peaceful neighborhood makes a peaceful city. A peaceful city makes a peaceful state. Peaceful state makes a peaceful country, and a peaceful country makes a peaceful world. And a peaceful world makes a peaceful universe.
I love that. I remember you first told me about that. I thought, wow, that is so cool.
Well, we guarantee new content and old content.
Flashback. And we did hear from Liberty. We were excited to get your email. And if you want to email us at exploringawareness@gmail.com, we love to hear from you. That's how you do it. I don't think people email that much anymore. I really think that's part of it. But if you want to get a hold of us, that's how you do it. exploringawareness@gmail.com.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
And then you can find us on Facebook. We have a Facebook page and Instagram, and we're on Twitter as well.
And the website.
Oh, yeah.
Exploringawareness.org.
Exploringawareness.org. And just again, healing, there's hope in healing, and healing is possible, and love is the healing force. There's so much to say about healing. So appreciate, Frank, all your thoughts today. And I appreciate you, everyone who is listening.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. It's great talking with you as always. And I look forward to our next exciting topic on the next episode of Exploring Awareness.
This podcast is not an attempt to practice medicine or provide specific medical advice, nor does use of this information establish a physician-patient relationship. Listening to this podcast does not replace medical consultation with a qualified health or medical professional to meet the health and medical needs of you or others. If you are having problems, please see your primary care provider or your local mental health professional.